All right, let's get right into it. We're about to crack open one of the most compelling theological mysteries out there. Think of it as a 1,400-year-old cold case, a lost chapter of the Qur'an that could change how we look at ancient religion entirely. So, we're going to approach this whole thing like a detective story. And the central question is this: did God's message really reach the whole world? Or were some of the biggest civilizations in history just left out? Okay, so here's our crime scene. If you map out the prophets we all know, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, they're all packed into this one little corner of the world. But now look east, to India, to China, where billions of people lived. It's a giant blank space. The map just goes dark. And that creates a huge theological problem. Why is it a problem? Because of this. This is the central piece of evidence right from the Qur'an itself. It's a divine guarantee, an absolute promise that every single nation got a messenger from God. Which means, well, there shouldn't be any dark spots on that map. So we're stuck with this massive contradiction. Either that promise was broken, or maybe our map is just wrong. Maybe we've been looking for clues in all the wrong places. And that's the crisis we're here to figure out. And this leads us to our missing persons file, the Sabiin, or the Sabians. The Qur'an actually mentions them 3 times, right there next to Jews and Christians, as a community that's on the right path. So who were they? The problem is, history seems to have completely lost them. They just vanished. And they are the key to this whole case. All right, so in any good investigation, what's the first thing you do? You rule out the usual suspects. For centuries, scholars have had a couple of main theories, but as you're about to see, they're total dead ends. Yeah, we can cross these 2 off the list pretty fast. First, you've got the Mandaeans from Iraq. They fail the forensic test because their holy books actually call Jesus a false prophet. That's a direct contradiction to the Qur'an. Then you have the Haranaeans from Turkey. They were star worshippers, which is a form of idolatry, and that's a total violation of monotheism. So, no, not them. So if the usual suspects are out, we need a new way in. We need a new tool, a kind of forensic key, to crack the code of the Qur'an itself. And this is the big breakthrough. The method is called functional referencing. And the big idea here is that the Qur'an often doesn't care about someone's proper name. It's not about the name on your birth certificate. Instead, it gives you a title that describes your function, your role, what you actually do. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, case file number 1, Haman. For centuries, critics pointed to this as a huge historical error because the Bible's Haman lived in Persia way later. But then, get this, in the 19th century, we finally deciphered Egyptian hieroglyphs. And what did we find? Haman was the title for the high priest who was also the overseer of the stone quarry workers, which is exactly what Pharaoh told him to do in the Qur'an. It's a title, not a name. Or, how about this one? Mary, the mother of Jesus. The Qur'an calls her the sister of Aaron, even though there's a 1,400-year gap between them. Again, not a mistake. Aaron was the father of the priesthood, the guy who represents temple service. Calling her his sister was a functional title. It meant she was a temple devotee, part of that sacred spiritual line. So you see how this works? It's a game changer. So let's apply this code to our mystery. We need to stop looking for a tribe that called themselves Sabians. We need to start looking for a people whose defining action, their function, matches the name. So what does Sabiin actually mean? It turns out the biggest clue was hiding in plain sight the whole time, in the name itself. It comes from an ancient Semitic yut that means to dip or to immerse. The Sabiin are, quite literally, the immersers. And now, this is where all the pieces finally click into place. With this key, the immersers, we can finally solve the case. This is the big reveal. The question becomes really, really simple now. Just think about it. Which of the world's great ancient civilizations had daily, public immersion in sacred water as the absolute center of their religious life? And, this wasn't some mysterious, unknown culture. We know for a fact that people in 7th century Arabia could have seen this with their own eyes. Just look at these ancient trade routes. They connected Arabia directly to the Indian subcontinent. A merchant from Mecca would have been a direct witness. So what would that merchant have seen? He would have seen this: the daily river rituals of the Vedic civilization. An entire society, priests, merchants, farmers, everyone, defined by their public immersion in the holy waters of the Indus and Ganges rivers. They are literally the immersers, the people of the water. And there you have it. The verdict is in. The Sabian, the lost, saved community from the Qur'an, they are the original adherents of the Vedas from the Indian subcontinent. Case closed. Or is it? Because here's the thing. Solving this mystery immediately throws open the door to a new one. And frankly, it's a much, much bigger one. We found the right people, but their modern identity seems to completely contradict everything the Qur'an says. And here it is. This is the massive problem. The Vedic faith today, well, it includes the 330 million gods of idolatry. It includes a rigid caste system. It includes a belief in reincarnation. And these are all things the Qur'an speaks out against in the strongest possible terms. So the question that should be screaming in your head right now is, how? How can these possibly be the monotheistic, saved community that the Qur'an mentions with such respect? It seems impossible. It just doesn't add up. And this is where the investigation gets truly mind-blowing. The author argues that the map was never dark. It was just covered in dust. He goes back to the original ancient Sanskrit texts and uncovers verses that explicitly forbid idols, that reject reincarnation, and that actually predict a linear judgment day, just like the Abrahamic faiths. To see that proof for yourself, well, for that, you have to read the book.